Before we begin, imagine stepping into a Victorian bedroom on a freezing winter night. The fire has almost died. The windows are covered with frost, and beneath layers of heavy blankets, an entire family prepares for sleep. The reality was far different from the elegant images shown in period dramas. Behind the polished furniture and lace curtains were uncomfortable nights, freezing temperatures, limited bathing, and everyday habits that seem almost unbelievable today. Victorian bedrooms were not simply places to rest. They reveal how people survived without central heating, indoor plumbing, or modern hygiene, and they tell us far more about daily life than grand palaces or royal portraits ever could. Tonight, we uncover the surprising truth about how ordinary Victorians slept, stayed warm, washed themselves, and managed the long, cold nights. If you think life in the 19th century looked cozy, you may be in for a surprise. The Victorian era lasted from 1837 to 1901. During the reign of Queen Victoria, a time remembered for industry, invention, and strict social manners. Yet, when darkness fell, even wealthy households faced challenges that modern Americans rarely imagine. Bedrooms were often much colder than the rest of the house because heating every room with coal fires was expensive and impractical. Families usually allowed the fire to burn out before going to bed, leaving the room to cool rapidly through the night. On especially cold mornings, it was not unusual to find ice forming inside the windows. To fight the cold, people relied on thick wool blankets, feather-filled comforters, heavy nightgowns, wool socks, and sleeping caps that covered the ears and head. Before climbing into bed, many placed metal warming pans filled with hot coals between the sheets, or used rubber or ceramic hot water bottles to take away the icy chill. Beds themselves were valuable pieces of furniture, often handed down through generations. Mattresses might be stuffed with horsehair, straw, feathers, or wool, each offering a different level of comfort, but none resembling today's soft memory foam. Bedbugs, fleas, and dust mites were constant companions. Despite regular efforts to clean bedding in the fresh air and sunlight, privacy was also a luxury. In working-class homes, several children frequently shared one bed, while parents slept nearby in the same room. Chamber pots were kept under nearly every bed because leaving the warmth of the blankets. To walk outside to an outhouse in the middle of a freezing night was both unpleasant and dangerous. These simple containers were emptied each morning, a routine that was considered completely normal long before indoor toilets became common. Bathing during the Victorian era was far less common than most people today would expect. Contrary to the popular myth, Victorians did care about cleanliness, but staying clean required enormous effort. Most homes did not have running hot water, and preparing a bath meant carrying buckets from a pump or well, heating the water over a coal stove, and pouring it into a large metal or tin bathtub. The process could take hours and consumed valuable fuel, making a full bath an expensive luxury rather than a daily routine. Wealthy families sometimes had servants prepare baths, but even they rarely bathed every day. For middle-class and working-class families, a complete bath might happen once a week, or even less during the winter months. Instead of soaking in a tub, many people practiced what was known as a wash-up. Every morning they washed their face, neck, hands, and sometimes their feet, using a ceramic basin and pitcher filled with cold or slightly warmed water. Clean collars, cuffs, and undergarments were considered just as important as washing the body because fresh linen absorbed sweat and helped maintain the appearance of cleanliness. Bedrooms almost always contained a washstand with a mirror, a water pitcher, a bowl, soap towels, and a hairbrush. This small piece of furniture served as the personal hygiene center of the household. During freezing weather, the water left overnight in the pitcher could develop a thin layer of ice, forcing people to break it before washing. The experience was hardly pleasant, yet it was part of everyday life. Strong perfumes and scented powders were also Popular because they masked odors between baths, women carefully brushed their long hair every evening, believing that 100 brush strokes improved both beauty and health. Men often shaved with straight razors while standing beside the washstand, using hot water heated moments before. Despite limited bathing, Victorians placed enormous value on neat clothing, polished shoes, and tidy appearances. Looking respectable was closely connected with moral character, and a clean appearance suggested discipline and self-control. Ironically, many elegant bedrooms featured beautiful porcelain bowls, embroidered towels, and decorative furniture while lacking something modern people consider essential: a simple hot shower. Cleanliness existed, but it required planning, hard work, and patience rather than the effortless convenience we enjoy today. When nature called during the middle of the night, Victorians faced a problem that most modern people never have to consider. Indoor plumbing was still uncommon for much of the 19th century, especially outside wealthy homes, and walking through a freezing house or into the dark outdoors to reach an outhouse was uncomfortable, inconvenient, and sometimes dangerous. The simple solution was the chamber pot, an object that could be found beneath nearly every bed, usually made of glazed ceramic, porcelain, or metal. The chamber pot was designed with a wide opening and a sturdy handle, making it easy to use in the darkness without leaving the warmth of the blankets. Although it may seem shocking today, there was nothing embarrassing about its presence. It was considered an ordinary household necessity, just as important as a bed or a fireplace. Early every morning, the contents were emptied, washed, and returned to their place before the bedroom was cleaned for the day. In wealthier households, servants quietly carried out this unpleasant task before the family awoke, while in ordinary homes, family members handled it themselves as part of the daily routine. Bedrooms were often filled with subtle scents from lavender, dried flowers, or herbal sachets placed in drawers and closets to keep the room smelling fresh. These pleasant fragrances also helped disguise less appealing odors that naturally developed in homes. Without modern plumbing, good ventilation was encouraged whenever the weather allowed, but opening windows during winter meant letting in freezing air, forcing families to balance fresh air with warmth. Nighttime itself could be unsettling. Without electric lights, a single candle or oil lamp provided only a small circle of light, leaving the rest of the room hidden in deep shadows. Many people kept a candle, matches, and the chamber pot within easy reach so they would not need to cross the room in darkness. Fire was another constant concern because one careless candle could ignite curtains, bedding, or wooden furniture. For that reason, families were taught to extinguish flames carefully before sleeping. Children often shared bedrooms with brothers, sisters, or parents, making privacy almost impossible. Every sound could be heard, every movement noticed, and even simple nighttime routines became shared experiences. The bedroom was not the quiet, private retreat we imagine today, but a busy family space where sleep, hygiene, warmth, illness, and daily survival all came together under one roof, revealing just how different ordinary Victorian life truly was from the romantic image often shown in films. Perhaps the greatest challenge of every Victorian night was not darkness or inconvenience, but the relentless cold. Today, a thermostat quietly keeps our homes comfortable. Yet 19th century families depended almost entirely on fireplaces and coal-burning stoves that heated only the rooms where they were located. Bedrooms were rarely kept warm throughout the night because burning coal while everyone slept was expensive and carried the risk of fire or dangerous fumes. As a result, the temperature inside a bedroom often dropped to nearly the same level as the air outside. During severe winters, people sometimes woke to find frost decorating the wallpaper, ice forming on water pitchers, and even frozen moisture clinging to blankets near the windows. Getting out of bed on a winter morning required real determination. Before climbing under the covers, many families used bed warmers, made from long-handled metal pans filled with glowing coals. The pan was carefully moved between the sheets for several minutes to remove the icy chill before being taken away. Later in the century, rubber hot water bottles became more common, offering a safer way to keep warm through the night. Heavy curtains around four-poster beds also served a practical purpose. They trapped body heat inside the sleeping space and blocked cold drafts that slipped through poorly. Insulated walls and windows, even simple bedroom furniture, reflected the struggle against winter. Thick rugs covered wooden floors to reduce the icy feeling beneath bare feet, while heavy drapes helped slow the movement of cold air. Families often slept wearing layers of clothing instead of lightweight pajamas. Wool stockings, flannel nightshirts, long-sleeved gowns, and sleeping caps helped preserve precious body heat. Some people even wrapped scarves around their necks before going to sleep. Sharing beds was another effective way to stay warm. Brothers and sisters commonly slept together, and in poorer households, several children occupied a single mattress because their combined body heat made cold nights more bearable. Pets such as cats or small dogs were sometimes welcomed into the bed for the very same reason. Morning routines began only after someone restarted the fire downstairs, gradually bringing warmth back into the house. Until then, washing in icy water or getting dressed felt almost unbearable. The romantic image of elegant Victorian bedrooms with luxurious furniture tells only part of the story. Behind the polished wood and beautiful wallpaper was a daily battle against freezing temperatures, reminding us that comfort was something earned through preparation, patience, and resilience rather than provided by the simple push of a button. If there was one thing every Victorian feared after the lights went out, it was disease. Long before antibiotics and modern medicine, the bedroom could quickly become a place of suffering instead of rest. When a family member became ill, they were usually cared for at home, often in the very bed where they had slept every night. Hospitals were expensive, overcrowded, and frequently viewed as places where people went to die rather than recover. As a result, bedrooms became sick rooms filled with homemade remedies, herbal mixtures, hot bricks wrapped in cloth, bowls of steaming water, and constant prayers. Fresh air was believed to be one of the best medicines available, so even during freezing weather, windows were sometimes opened for short periods despite the bitter cold. Doctors themselves did not fully understand how many diseases spread until the late 19th century, meaning families unknowingly exposed everyone in the house to infection. Tuberculosis, scarlet fever, diphtheria, and measles could move rapidly from one person to another, especially when several relatives shared the same bedroom. Children were particularly vulnerable because they often slept together in crowded beds where coughing and sneezing easily spread illness. Through the night, bedding was aired outdoors whenever possible, but washing thick blankets and feather mattresses was difficult and infrequent. Strong-smelling disinfectants, such as carbolic acid, gradually became more common after scientists proved that invisible germs caused disease. Yet these new ideas took years to reach every household. During serious illness, a clock, ticking quietly beside the bed, often became the only sound, breaking the silence as anxious family members waited through endless nights, hoping for signs of improvement. Candles burned beside the patient so relatives could watch over them until dawn. If someone died, the body frequently remained in the bedroom for a short time before the funeral because there were no professional funeral homes in many communities. Mirrors were sometimes covered with black cloth according to local customs, while curtains remained closed as neighbors arrived to offer sympathy. These deeply emotional moments became part of everyday Victorian life because death was far more common than it is today. Infant mortality remained high. Outbreaks of disease returned regularly, and nearly every family experienced heartbreaking loss. The Victorian bedroom was therefore much more than a place for sleep. It was where children were born, where loved ones recovered from illness, where families gathered during moments of hope and despair, and where countless lives quietly came to an end beneath the same heavy blankets that had once protected them from the winter cold. As evening settled over a Victorian home, preparing for bed was a carefully followed ritual rather than a quick routine. There were no glowing phone screens, no television, and no electric lights to keep people awake late into the night. Instead, daily life followed the rhythm of the sun. During winter, darkness arrived early, and many families began their bedtime preparations soon after supper. Before anyone climbed into bed, candles and oil lamps had to be lit, bedroom fires checked, and curtains tightly closed against the cold. Every flame was precious because candles were expensive, so families avoided wasting light. Children were expected to finish their lessons, say their prayers, and go to bed long before the adults. Parents often read passages from the Bible or another favorite book aloud before extinguishing the last candle. Reading by candlelight was popular, but it came with challenges. The dim, flickering light strained the eyes, while melted wax and the constant risk of fire demanded careful attention. Many Victorians believed that ending the day with quiet reading or prayer helped build strong moral character. Clothing was folded neatly beside the bed because garments were costly and expected to last for many years. Boots were cleaned before bedtime so they would be ready for the next morning. Watches were carefully wound by hand every evening, ensuring they would continue keeping accurate time throughout the following day. Hair also required attention before sleep. Women with long hair brushed it thoroughly, often believing that 100 strokes each night promoted healthy growth and improved circulation. Some braided their hair to prevent tangles while sleeping. Men removed collars, waistcoats, and heavy coats, changing into simple cotton or flannel nightshirts. That provided warmth without restricting movement. Jewelry, if owned, was locked away in small wooden boxes rather than left out in the open. Silence gradually settled over the house as one candle after another disappeared into darkness. Outside, the streets became remarkably quiet compared with modern cities. Without cars, airplanes, or constant electrical noise, only the distant sound of horses, church bells, barking dogs, or the wind against the windows disturbed the night. For many Victorians, bedtime represented the end of a long day of physical labor, household chores, and responsibilities. Sleep was not viewed as a luxury, but as an essential reward earned through hard work. Looking back, these nightly rituals reveal a slower and more deliberate way of life, where every action required thought, every resource was carefully conserved, and even the simple act of going to bed reflected the values of discipline, order, and routine that defined the Victorian age. Not every Victorian experienced the same bedroom. Social class shaped nearly every aspect of nightly life, creating a dramatic contrast between the wealthy and the poor. In grand country houses and elegant town mansions, bedrooms were designed to impress visitors as much as to provide comfort. Richly carved four-poster beds stood beneath embroidered canopies. Thick carpets covered the floors, and polished mahogany furniture reflected the glow of candlelight. Walls were decorated with expensive wallpaper, framed paintings, and carefully chosen ornaments that displayed the family's wealth and social status. Servants prepared the room each evening by lighting fires, warming the bed, drawing curtains, filling wash basins with fresh water, and placing clean towels beside the washstand. The family entered a room that was already prepared for a comfortable night. Life for working-class families could not have been more different. Many lived in crowded brick houses or small apartments, where a single bedroom was shared by parents, children, and sometimes even grandparents, or boarders who rented a corner of the room to help pay expenses. Privacy was almost non-existent. Several children often slept together in one narrow bed, while adults rested nearby on another mattress, or even on simple straw. Filled pallets placed directly on the floor. Furniture was limited to the essentials because every inch of space mattered. A small chest stored clothing, A chair held folded garments, and a washstand served the entire family. Ventilation was poor, especially in overcrowded industrial cities where smoke from coal fires drifted through the streets day and night. Damp walls encouraged mold, while broken windows were sometimes patched with cloth or paper. Because replacing glass was expensive, rats and insects frequently entered homes through cracks in floors and walls, making peaceful sleep difficult. Noise was another constant companion. Instead of quiet country evenings, families living near factories heard machinery, wagons, horses, and shouting long after sunset. Despite these hardships, many Victorian families took enormous pride in keeping their bedrooms as neat and respectable as possible. Beds were carefully made each morning, blankets were aired outside whenever weather permitted, and even the smallest room was decorated with family photographs, embroidered cloths, or fresh flowers when available. Respectability mattered regardless of income. Visitors often judged a household by its cleanliness rather than its size. The Victorian bedroom, therefore, tells two very different stories. One speaks of comfort, servants, and luxury, while the other reveals determination, resilience, and the daily struggle to create a safe and dignified home despite poverty. Together, these contrasting worlds formed the true reality of Victorian life behind closed bedroom doors. While Victorian bedrooms may appear elegant in paintings and historical dramas, they were also filled with dangers that modern families rarely think about. The greatest threat came from fire. Nearly every source of light relied on an open flame, whether it was a candle, an oil lamp, or a fireplace. A single moment of carelessness could turn a peaceful bedroom into a deadly trap. Curtains, wooden furniture, feather mattresses, and heavy blankets could all catch fire within minutes. Children were repeatedly warned never to play with matches, and adults carefully checked every candle before going to sleep. Even then, devastating house fires remained a common cause of injury and death throughout the 19th century. Another hidden danger came from the very fuel that kept homes warm. Coal fires produced smoke, soot, and poisonous gases. Poorly ventilated chimneys could allow carbon monoxide to build up inside a room, causing headaches, dizziness, unconsciousness, and sometimes death without any visible warning. Families regularly cleaned fireplaces and chimneys, but accidents still occurred, especially during the coldest months when fires burned for long hours. Gaslighting, which became increasingly popular in wealthier homes during the later Victorian period, introduced another risk. Gas pipes occasionally leaked, filling rooms with toxic fumes or creating explosions if a flame was brought too close. Bedrooms also contained unexpected health hazards. Wallpaper colored with bright green pigments sometimes contained arsenic, a highly poisonous substance used to achieve fashionable shades. Scientists still debate how dangerous these wallpapers were under normal conditions, but damp rooms could release tiny particles that worried doctors. Even during the Victorian era, feather mattresses collected dust, insects, and moisture, while poor ventilation encouraged mold to grow behind furniture and beneath carpets. Bedbugs were another unwelcome visitor. These tiny insects hid inside wooden bed frames, mattresses, and cracks in walls, emerging at night to feed on sleeping people. Families tried boiling bedding, exposing mattresses to sunlight, and scrubbing furniture with strong chemicals, but complete elimination was difficult. Despite these challenges, Victorians constantly searched for ways to make their homes safer. Improvements in sanitation, building design, gas technology, and medical knowledge slowly transformed the ordinary bedroom during the second half of the 19th century. By the end of Queen Victoria's reign, many middle-class homes had indoor plumbing, safer lighting, and better heating than previous generations could have imagined. Yet compared with modern bedrooms equipped with smoke detectors, electricity, central heating, and clean running water, even the finest Victorian bedroom remained a place where comfort and danger existed side by side every single night. For Victorian children, bedtime was very different from what modern families experience today. There were no glowing nightlights, stuffed animals with soothing sounds. Childhood itself was shaped by strict discipline, clear routines, and the expectation that even young children should learn responsibility from an early age. After supper, boys and girls were expected to wash, change into their nightclothes, say their evening prayers, and quietly prepare for bed without complaint. Parents believed that good habits formed in childhood created respectable adults, so bedtime routines were taken seriously. Many children shared bedrooms with several brothers and sisters, and in poorer families, it was common for 3 or 4 children to sleep in the same bed. Space was limited, and keeping everyone warm during the winter was often more important than providing privacy. The youngest children usually slept beside their mother until they were old enough to move into a shared bed with their siblings. Before going to sleep, many families gathered together, while a parent read aloud from the Bible or from popular adventure stories. Books by authors such as Charles Dickens, Robert Louis Stevenson, and later Rudyard Kipling became treasured evening entertainment because reading aloud allowed the entire family to enjoy a story. Even if not everyone could read well, candlelight flickered across the room as children listened carefully before the final flame was extinguished. Fear of the dark was common because once the candles were blown out, the bedroom became almost completely black. Strange sounds from creaking wooden floors, the wind outside, or distant church bells often fueled children's imaginations. Stories about ghosts, mysterious visitors, and haunted houses were widely believed in many communities, making nighttime especially frightening for some young minds. Parents often reminded their children that courage, prayer, and good behavior would protect them from evil. Toys were few compared with today, and most were carefully placed away before bedtime because they were handmade and valuable. Clothing for the next day was folded neatly beside the bed, ready for another early morning. Sleep itself was considered essential for healthy growth, hard work, and moral development. Children were expected to wake early, help with household chores, attend school if possible, or assist their parents with work, depending on the family's circumstances. Looking back, the Victorian childhood bedroom reflects a world where comfort was limited but family traditions remained strong. Within those small candlelit rooms, children learned obedience, shared stories, comforted frightened siblings, and created memories that stayed with them long after the cold winter nights had passed. Dreams, superstitions, and nighttime fears occupied an important place in the Victorian imagination. Although the 19th century was an age of remarkable scientific discovery, many ordinary people still held deep beliefs in signs, omens, and the supernatural. When darkness settled over the house and the final candle was extinguished, the familiar bedroom could suddenly feel mysterious and unsettling. Every creaking floorboard, every gust of wind against the windows, and every unexpected shadow seemed capable of hiding something unknown. Children were not the only ones who feared the night. Adults often carried the same anxieties, even if they rarely admitted them aloud. Ghost stories became one of the most popular forms of entertainment during the Victorian era. Families gathered around fireplaces on cold evenings to tell tales of haunted houses, restless spirits, mysterious strangers, and unexplained disappearances. Writers such as Charles Dickens helped make supernatural fiction enormously popular, blending everyday life with eerie events that left readers wondering where reality ended and imagination began. Many Victorians believed that dreams could carry hidden meanings or warnings about the future. Dream books were widely sold, offering interpretations for everything from falling teeth to seeing birds, water, or unfamiliar faces while asleep. Some believed that dreaming of a wedding predicted sorrow, while dreaming of a baby promised unexpected news. Mirrors also attracted countless superstitions. Breaking one was said to bring years of bad luck, while covering mirrors after a death was believed to prevent the spirit of the deceased from becoming trapped inside the glass. Strange nighttime sounds were often explained through folklore rather than science. An owl calling outside the window might be interpreted as a warning, while an unexplained knock at the door could be seen as a sign that bad news was approaching. Even ordinary objects in the bedroom sometimes carried symbolic meaning. Family Bibles rested beside the bed for comfort and protection. Dried lavender was placed beneath pillows to encourage peaceful sleep, and crosses or religious images were displayed to remind the family that faith could overcome fear. Yet the greatest source of anxiety remained uncertainty itself. Without electric streetlights, neighborhoods became almost completely dark after sunset. Medical emergencies, fires, or unexpected visitors in the middle of the night could quickly turn an ordinary evening into a crisis. The Victorian bedroom therefore became more than a place for rest. It was a place where science and superstition existed side by side, where reason met imagination, and where every long winter night reminded people that the world still contained many mysteries waiting beyond the reach of a single candle's light. One of the greatest transformations of the Victorian era happened quietly inside the bedroom. During Queen Victoria's reign, technology advanced at an astonishing pace, gradually changing how people lived, slept. Someone born in the early years of the 19th century would have entered adulthood in a world lit almost entirely by candles and fireplaces. Yet by the end of the Victorian age, many cities had electric lighting, indoor plumbing, telephones, and modern sanitation. The bedroom became one of the places where this remarkable progress could be seen most clearly. In the early Victorian years, nearly every bedtime routine depended on fire. Candles had to be trimmed, fireplaces cleaned, and water heated by hand. Bedrooms remained cold, dark, and uncomfortable for much of the year. As gas lighting spread through growing towns and cities, brighter rooms became possible. Although many families still worried about leaks, explosions, and poisonous fumes, toward the end of the century, electricity began replacing both candles and gas lamps in wealthier homes. For the first time, people could illuminate a room by simply turning a switch, dramatically reducing the danger of accidental fires. Indoor plumbing also revolutionized daily life. Instead of carrying heavy buckets of water upstairs, families with modern homes could enjoy running water directly from a tap. Washstands slowly disappeared as bathrooms became more common. Chamber pots, once hidden beneath almost every bed, gradually became unnecessary as indoor toilets spread through cities. Better sewer systems greatly reduced foul odors and helped limit the spread of dangerous diseases that had haunted earlier generations. Heating technology improved as well. More efficient fireplaces, cast iron stoves, and improved insulation made bedrooms warmer and healthier than those of previous decades. Mattresses became more comfortable with the introduction of metal spring designs, replacing many of the straw and horsehair fillings that collected dust and insects. Even bedroom decoration reflected changing tastes. Mass-produced wallpaper, affordable mirrors, factory-made furniture, and machine-woven textiles allowed middle-class families to furnish their homes more beautifully than ever before. Despite these advances, many rural households continued living much as their grandparents had, proving that progress did not arrive everywhere at the same speed. By the time Queen Victoria died in 1901, the bedroom had evolved from a cold, dimly lit space centered on survival into a more comfortable room focused on health, privacy, and convenience. The changes that took place behind those bedroom doors reflected the larger transformation of Victorian society itself, showing how invention and industry slowly reshaped everyday life in ways that millions of ordinary people could see, feel, and experience every single night. Looking back from the 21st century, it is easy to imagine that life in a Victorian bedroom was simply uncomfortable, but the reality was far more complex. While modern homes offer central heating, hot showers, electric lighting, soft mattresses, and private bathrooms, Victorians possessed something that many people today often struggle to find: a strong sense of routine, family connection, and appreciation for everyday comforts. Their bedrooms were not designed as places for entertainment. There were no televisions on the walls, no smartphones glowing beside the pillow, and no endless stream of notifications interrupting sleep. When darkness arrived, the day naturally came to an end. Families talked with one another, shared stories, read books aloud, or simply sat quietly before preparing for bed. Sleep followed the rhythm of nature rather than the schedule of electronic devices. Modern science has shown that artificial light can interfere with healthy sleep patterns, making the Victorian habit of reducing light in the evening surprisingly beneficial, even if it developed from necessity rather than scientific understanding. At the same time, few people today would willingly exchange modern conveniences for 19th century living. Most Victorians accepted freezing bedrooms, heavy blankets, chamber pots, weekly baths, and constant household chores because they had no alternative. Heating water, washing clothes, cleaning fireplaces, and preparing bedrooms demanded hours of physical labor every week. Even simple tasks that take only seconds today required planning, strength, and patience. Privacy also changed dramatically. Modern families usually expect every child to have personal space, while Victorian households often viewed shared bedrooms as perfectly normal. Ideas about cleanliness evolved as well. Today, daily showers are common, but Victorians measured cleanliness by fresh clothing, careful grooming, and orderly homes rather than frequent bathing. Their standards reflected the technology available rather than a lack of personal pride. Perhaps the greatest difference lies in our expectations of comfort. Modern bedrooms are often filled with electronics, climate control, and luxury furniture that previous generations could never have imagined. Yet these conveniences have also made many people forget how difficult everyday life once was. The Victorian bedroom reminds us that comfort is not something that has always existed. It is the result of centuries of invention, engineering, public health improvements, and changing ideas about home and family. Every warm winter night, every hot shower, and every light switched on before bed represents a level of convenience that would have seemed almost miraculous to an ordinary Victorian family preparing to sleep beneath heavy blankets on a freezing night. More than 100 years ago, not everything people believe about Victorian bedrooms is actually true. Over the years, countless myths have spread through movies, television shows, and the internet, creating an image of the Victorian home that is often more dramatic than reality. One of the most common claims is that Victorians almost never bathed, while daily showers were impossible for most families. This does not mean they ignored personal hygiene. In fact, washing the face and upper body every morning was considered an essential part of being respectable. Fresh underclothing was changed regularly. Hair was carefully brushed, and clothing was cleaned whenever possible. Another popular myth suggests that every Victorian house was filthy and infested with disease. Conditions certainly varied, especially in overcrowded industrial neighborhoods. But many families worked incredibly hard to keep their homes clean despite limited water and primitive sanitation. Floors were swept daily, bedding was aired outside, furniture was dusted, and windows were opened whenever weather allowed. Respectability and cleanliness were closely connected, and a tidy bedroom reflected good character as much as personal wealth. Another misunderstanding involves sleeping positions. Some people claim Victorians slept sitting upright because they feared lying flat, while seriously ill patients might rest in a raised position to breathe more easily. Healthy people slept lying down just as we do today. Their beds may have been firmer, shorter, or covered with heavier blankets. but they were still designed for ordinary sleep. The idea that everyone died young is also misleading. Infant mortality was tragically high, and infectious diseases claimed many lives. Yet millions of Victorians lived into their 60s, 70s, or even longer. Queen Victoria herself lived to the age of 81, an impressive lifespan for her era. Another myth suggests that all Victorian bedrooms looked luxurious, filled with carved furniture and elegant wallpaper. In reality, such rooms belonged mainly to wealthy households. Most families owned simple furniture, chosen for practicality rather than beauty. Their bedrooms were modest spaces where every object served an important purpose. Finally, many imagine Victorian life as constantly gloomy and joyless because of strict social rules. While manners were certainly important, families still laughed together, celebrated birthdays, read stories before bed, exchanged gifts during Christmas, and filled their homes with warmth whenever they could. The truth is far more interesting than the myths. Victorian bedrooms were places of hard work, family life, hope, and adaptation. They were neither fairy tale palaces nor miserable prisons, but ordinary rooms where ordinary people lived through extraordinary times as the modern world slowly began to emerge. If an ordinary American from the 21st century could spend a single night in an authentic Victorian bedroom, the experience would likely be far more challenging than expected. At first glance, the room might appear beautiful. A polished wooden bed, lace curtains, embroidered blankets, elegant wallpaper, and antique furniture create an atmosphere that feels warm and inviting. Yet within only a few hours, the differences between modern life and the 19th century would become impossible to ignore. The first surprise would be the temperature. Without central heating, the room would gradually become colder as the fire burned low, forcing visitors to rely on heavy blankets, wool clothing, and perhaps a sleeping cap just to remain comfortable. Silence would be another unexpected experience. Instead of traffic, airplanes, televisions, and electronic devices, the night would be filled with the crackling of the fireplace, the ticking of a clock, distant church bells, the sound of rain against the windows, or the wind moving through nearby trees. For some people, the quiet would feel peaceful. For others, it might seem strangely unsettling. Darkness would arrive much earlier than most modern people are accustomed to. Once the candles were extinguished, the bedroom would become almost completely black. Reading or searching for misplaced objects would be nearly impossible without relighting a candle. Even a simple trip across the room required caution to avoid bumping into furniture or knocking over something valuable. Personal comfort would also change dramatically. The mattress might feel firm or uneven, the blanket surprisingly heavy, and the pillow filled with feathers instead of modern foam. There would be no bathroom attached to the bedroom, no electric alarm clock waiting beside the bed, and no glowing phone screen offering entertainment before sleep. If nature called during the night, the chamber pot beneath the bed would suddenly become a practical necessity rather than an odd historical curiosity. Morning would begin early, not because of an alarm, but because of sunlight streaming through the curtains, birds singing outside, and the routines of the household already beginning downstairs. Washing would require cold water from a basin unless someone had taken the time to heat it first. Dressing involved multiple layers of clothing, each carefully fastened by hand before the day could truly begin. Despite these inconveniences, many visitors might discover something unexpected. Without constant interruptions from technology, the evening felt slower, conversations lasted longer, and sleep came naturally once the final candle disappeared into darkness. A single Victorian night would remind us how completely modern technology has transformed everyday life while also revealing that comfort is not the only ingredient needed for a peaceful evening at home. As we close the door on the Victorian bedroom for the final time, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. History is not only found in grand palaces, famous battles, or the lives of kings and queens. It lives inside ordinary rooms where ordinary people laughed, worried, worked, dreamed, and slept. A Victorian bedroom may seem simple at first glance, yet every object tells a story. The heavy blankets speak of freezing winters before central heating. The washstand reminds us of a time before running water. The chamber pot reveals a world without indoor plumbing. The candle beside the bed reflects nights when darkness truly filled every corner of the house. Even the worn wooden floor remembers the footsteps of generations who lived through one of the most remarkable periods of change in human history. During Queen Victoria's reign, the world transformed faster than ever before. Steam engines connected distant cities. Factories reshaped entire nations. Electricity began replacing candlelight, and scientific discoveries changed how people understood health, disease, and everyday life. Yet behind all of those extraordinary achievements, millions of families continued living ordinary evenings, much like the ones we have explored together. Parents tucked their children into bed. Couples talked quietly before sleep. Grandparents shared old stories, and everyone hoped to wake safely the following morning. Their lives were different from ours in countless ways, but their hopes, fears, love for family, and desire for a peaceful home remained surprisingly familiar. Perhaps that is why the Victorian era continues to fascinate people more than a century later. It stands between two worlds, one rooted in tradition and the other rushing toward modern life. By looking inside a single bedroom, we discover not only how people slept, washed, stayed warm, or survived the cold, but how they adapted to change with resilience, determination, and remarkable ingenuity. The next time you switch on a bedside lamp, take a hot shower before bed, or pull a warm blanket over yourself on a winter night, remember that comforts we now consider ordinary would have seemed almost magical to a Victorian family. History surrounds us every day, often hidden within the simplest moments of daily life. Thank you for spending this evening beside the fire as we explored the hidden world of Victorian bedrooms together. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, be sure to subscribe and join us again for more relaxing stories from the Victorian era. There will always be another crackling fireplace, another forgotten diary, another quiet street, and another fascinating chapter of history waiting to be discovered. Until next time, keep the fire burning, stay curious, and let history carry you gently into the night.